So the first product people buy in any sale is not the salesman. We always say, well, what's the first product they buy? Well, me. No, that's the second product they buy into. The first product they buy into is your emotional state, particularly your emotional state of confidence. Because most people operate on a low emotional state level. And so they need to borrow from your state that's highly energetic and confident. They borrow from you to move from a no to a maybe or a yes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live awesome lives. I am joined by my Polish co-host, Polish Peter.
How do you do?
How do I do what?
Well, it's interesting England, because when I was learning English, I'm still learning, I think, according to some people. I'm not going to mention any names. The person that was teaching me English, I think she was teaching out of the book because she said, whenever I meet somebody in the United States, I should say, how do you do? So that's what I'm doing. How do you do?
All right, then. Well, with that being said, we're doing a great podcast episode here, man. We got Tim Redmond. Man, really cool story. This guy started a software tech business that started from just a couple people, grew up to 400, and they sold it into it. And we're going to talk about business growth. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about things that you're not comfortable doing. Like in particular, we're going to talk about well, I'll just say it now. Prospecting, cold calling, but not from the way you guys are thinking about it right now. We're not going to talk about the technique itself in terms of details, but more so some really powerful lessons that you're going to get out of this and how you can apply it to your life and business.
And these lessons, I think, are more impactful, a lot more important to know rather than just a strategy on how to cold call and things like that, because I love what he talks about. You know, will you hear when you say no? I asked him that question. And we talked about some of the biggest mistakes that he experienced, that business owners make. So go and take lots of notes, a lot of good lessons out of this particular podcast to help you in your business.
Lots of nuggets here. You're going to love it. It's a lot of fun as well. Here's our interview with Tim Redmond. Tim, what's up, man? Welcome to Life Inner Show.
Hey, this is great to be here. And just even the pre-show has been a lot of fun. You guys, I know you're serious about what you do, but you have a lot of fun. So it's like it's three brothers in the same room. I'm one of 11 kids, but I feel like I'm right here in my family.
This is it. This is it. This is going to be some brotherly conversation right here, man. Well, listen, so Tim, I want our audience to get familiar with you and all the awesome things you've accomplished. And so, as we started talking, and like you built a business from just a couple of you guys to 400 employees and sold into it. How did that even happen? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was working as a CPA. You know what a CPA is, right? Constant pain.
Perfect. I'm going to use that. I don't know if my CPA will like it quite as much though, but yeah.
So, I actually have a couple in my group, so I use that too. All right.
So anyway, I work for PricewaterhouseCoopers now. And so worked for them 2-3 years. Then this guy asked me to help him with a firm he had just started. And we were building CPA software for bookkeeping and taxes. And we were just after that CPA, accountant, bean counter, tax preparing market. And we built it with direct mail. We started out with a couple thousand pieces and 8,000, 10,000, 20,000. We got to where we were sending out 400,000 pieces of mail 3 times a year. And that's how we built this business to a $40 million a year business. And so learned tons of lessons with that. I set up all the systems, all the testing systems, the sales and the support divisions, the marketing. So I got to create all that from scratch. So I learned a lot because I did a lot of stupid stuff. So that's just admit that here. If you want to talk to somebody perfect, then talk to my wife.
Right. Okay. So, man, there are that many. So this is a software that's designed specifically for professionals in this field. It wasn't like it wasn't like Quicken, like for like the consumer necessarily. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Intuit comes along and they're like, hey, we're going to buy out our competition essentially.
Yeah. They offered us a pretty good offer, and they said, "Hey, we need Redmond to help transition our 22,000 renewing clients over." So I worked for them for about a year, and then so tons of lessons on that, and then I actually started traveling around through a nonprofit, Redmond Leadership Institute, and we went to particularly in developing countries and teaching on leadership and growth and certain mindsets for progress and development, and just learned tons of lessons from that. I got into coaching, believe it or not. I do these seminars on growth and how to grow your organization. And sometimes political leaders, pastors, business leaders, all kinds of different groups. And they've come up and said, "Hey, do you offer coaching?" I go, "Sure. What's your question? I'll coach you right now." Not realizing there's multi-million-dollar coaching companies. Sometimes I spend an hour with them solving their problems. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. I can do a lot less traveling, make a lot more money, help a lot more people in a more intense way by starting the coaching. So about 10 years ago, I really focused on coaching as a full-time focus. We still do some speaking, but love it. We got 7 coaches. I've got about 150, 160 clients that we help out on a weekly basis. And we just move the needle. That's what it's all about. Just making the business owners' wallets fat, and making sure they're not out in the field working their rear ends off, that they got a business that works for them. So we have an absolute blast. I mean, I got so many stories on this that, I get up early in the morning talking to this plumber who's making $3,000 a month in profit. They can't hardly pay their mortgage. And now, a couple years working with us, he sent me a text that said, "Hey, this is the first vacation I've ever taken when my business is making money while I'm on vacation."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's now popping about $35,000, $40,000 profit every month, plus his salary. So, those are the kind of stories that we live for. I get up early in the morning for. So,
what got you interested in that? Like, so here you are, you have a successful business, and I can imagine, I've heard this happen to people that are, for instance, bought out of their businesses. Like now all of a sudden they search for purpose. They're like, what do I do now? Like, where's my meaning? How do I contribute? What do I do? Was this a natural evolution for you where you were leading your business and then you're like, well, I'm good at this. I like helping people. How did that go? Because you must have had a transitional period from that business into where you are now. Did you just slide into that, or did you struggle?
Well, I always thought like an entrepreneur. My freshman year of college, I went to my parents' attic and found just stuff. I'm not supposed to say shit on here, am I?
Well, Peter says ship a lot.
I said no, ship.
That's what I said.
Yeah, that's what Peter says that a lot, and we misunderstand him, and so who knows? So you're fine.
Listen, you're fine. Whatever you say, you're fine, because the stuff that I say on this podcast sometimes sounds completely different according to him. So,
and they understand your Texan accent here too, right?
Yes, and I have transcripts at the bottom of the screen, which they don't understand either. So it's all good.
So what were we asking now, or what were we talking about?
The journey into like your coaching business, and like you said, you were going to the attic and.
Yeah, so I pick up a bunch of old pictures and plaques and sell them to a bunch of other clueless freshmen and sophomores on the wing, so that I can have money to buy books and go to college. And I remember my advanced accounting class, which is a cure for insomnia for anybody. And you CPAs out there, just forgive me for a minute. But I picked accounting because those were the happiest seniors, and they had big job offers. And the main thing I wanted to work in at the time, it was Big 8 accounting, was so that I can be involved in businesses to learn the consulting. So I remember in advanced accounting, I'd write down all the businesses that I wanted to either build or consult. So I've always had that mindset to do that. Always looked at myself as a coach, even when I was building the software company. And then going out in this nonprofit work, doing this, I just be pulled on a lot as a coach or a consultant. So love that. And so I finally just shifted that to say, boom, I'm going to put the flag in the stand, in the ground, in the sand, and just okay, that's what my main job is going to be, is just helping people grow their businesses. So,
Yeah.
and I am looking at, I mean, I buy businesses too. And so, because my stuff works on businesses I buy, and so, I'm doing both now.
So that's awesome, man. And so tell me, like, throughout your, I mean, I don't know a whole lot of people that have, sold a business to a major, a major company like Intuit, and who have built from the ground up, essentially, that scale business. What does it take? And what are some of the things you've learned that you now pass on to your coaching clients, like between the difference between like entrepreneurs and business owners who are successful and those who struggle and those who have a hard time, and talk to us about some of the common mistakes you see.
Well, okay, so we built our business on cold calling, and we got our first 100 clients from cold calling. And as a matter of fact, the coaches in training would have to do cold calling for at least 3 or 4 months, because I wanted to make sure they could do things that didn't come natural to them, things they didn't necessarily, I got this college degree and I'm doing cold calling. Come on. So I wanted, I said, you're going to be talking to people and you're going to change the way they think and the way they behave. So I want to see that you can overcome, you can do emotional mastery, you can do state management. And so we built our business. It became a flourishing coaching company based on a 99.75% rejection rate. And I know that sounds crazy, it's insane, but here's the point, is you've got to believe in what you're doing enough to get numb to the no, to just push through stuff, and not be above calling, not be subservient to that no, that rejection. And we would close early on. We would close 1 out of 400 people we called.
Wow.
And so, what does that require? That requires a tremendous amount of endurance, stamina. I had somebody call me a few weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, I'm starting this new business, and I know you guys have done cold calling. This thing's built on cold calling, and gosh, I'm having a rough time with it." Well, he'd only called maybe a couple dozen people. It's like, well, call 500 people, then tell me where you're at. You don't have enough information to tell. And then another huge mistake we make is we sell stuff because, man, we build it and they'll just come to us. It'll sell itself, said a very broke businessman.
Right.
If you build it, they will come, right?
Field of Dreams was a lie.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know where that dream is or where that field is, but it's not on this planet. So, the idea was you just have to get tough and go through it, knock on doors until your knuckles get bloody. And then now you're ready to learn. But the big thing that I didn't do, that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do, is they don't have a sales workflow. So this guy calls me and he says, "Man, it's so hard to get this first call." I said, "Well, tell me about your sales workflow." He goes, "Well, the first call we call and it's like a 2-hour presentation." I go, "What? 2-hour presentation? It's like you're asking somebody to marry you on the first date. What are you doing? I don't, just engage your brain, bro." I have been in very, very serious accident. My brother was killed in it. I had to learn to read and write all over again. Going into my junior year in high school. So it's tough. I know what it is to overcome a lot of stuff, but you've got to just man up and push through it. So I talked to him about a sales workflow, endurance, but also sales workflow. Your first call is just, "Hey, can he meet for 10 minutes? Because we're going to talk about something super interesting," to catch their attention. Have a 10-minute call to see if they qualify for an assessment. You give them a free assessment or whatever you charge for it, and it's going to be hugely insightful, and you'll show off your expertise. You'll highlight their needs and their problems they didn't even know they had, and boom, you have a chance to do business. But make each step easy to take the next step. So that's a huge mistake that a lot of business people make. They make their first and second, third step. Even with our coaching, if you're not ready to pay up front, which most people are, but there's some that are just really concerned. Well, we're going to book you to the first coaching meeting and tell me where you're at after this first coaching meeting. Let them try it. Let them experience what you've got going, and so, or offer a no-brainer offer. It's like, hey, this first time around, it's $1. Can you bankroll $1? Can you get your wife's support do you need to talk to her or him to get agreement to decide on $1, or do you have a backbone enough? Make that decision. Let's go with it. I want you to experience it. And I'm giving you a stupid offer. Like you don't need a brain to be able to say yes to it. So these are the things that I see are huge mistakes that business owners make.
So I have a couple of things I want to follow up with on that. Number one, Tim, I think the best people to make these calls are going to be married men, because they are really used to hearing no. so
I hope
think
your wife does not watch this particular podcast, because I'm going to tell my wife not to watch it.
It's
just wonder, okay?
So secondly,
your funeral.
Yeah, if there's no life, if this is the last Life After Show episode you ever hear, that's what everyone knows what just happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom. Okay.
So the next thing is, I'm amazed at those numbers, because Peter and I, this wasn't too long. You and I were talking about a particular student in our program who they're like, I can't. No, everybody's telling me no, and they talked to like 20 people, and it was like, what? Like and so that persistence is something that it fascinates me, and I'm curious, like, how does somebody, like, what can somebody do to really, like, just like you said, become numb to the no? Like, how can somebody is it having a big enough why? Is it just like having how do you actually do that and maintain that persistence and the discipline to make those calls when you're just like, gosh, and at some point you start to believe you're just going to hear a no, so you probably don't even put in the effort, and then it becomes self-fulfilling.
Right. Well, step one, you got to get married, right? Step one, you got to get married first.
Yes, I'm with you.
So the first product people buy in any sale is not the salesman. We always say, well, what's the first product they buy? Well, me. No, that's the second product they buy into. The first product they buy into is your emotional state, particularly your emotional state of confidence. Because most people operate on a low state level, a low emotional state level. And so they need to borrow from your state that's highly energetic and confident. They borrow from you to move from a no to a maybe or a yes. Okay. So you got to come in there ready to take on the world. Yeah. But I've had a day and a half. 150 calls a day was our folks that they had to make at least 150 calls a day. It's like, I've done over 225 calls. No. 225 times. Come on. So it's like, well, grow a backbone and do it. What do we have to do, and how do we build ourselves up emotionally? Just get in love with a fat wallet and hate an empty bank account. Remember Cinderella Man? And the boxer that who was the guy that played in Gladiator? Russell
Crowe.
Russell
Crowe, yeah. So he's playing the Cinderella Man. He says, now why are you wanting to box this guy? I mean, he's knocked out, he's killed a couple of people. Why are you just wanting to come out of retirement and just try to take this guy on? He goes, I'm doing it for milk. If you remember the movie here, it was during the Depressions here, and they had the milk and they kept watering it down just so it was barely white, just so they can, the kids would think it's milk. And he says, I'm fighting for milk. So you gotta know, it's like we get all in the psychological stuff, and we got all these psychological diseases that we have nowadays that, it's like, and it's not like it's not valid, but just shut the F up, sit down and get after it. Your wallet, your future, your internal wiring and the impact you're supposed to make is requiring you to go through this tough time. Do it. I have a son that's 26 years old. He played football in college. His body is built like a Greek statue. A lot. He reminds me of me a lot. No, and but he's this fitness instructor, and I was helping him with it. And he had 2 months. His first 2 months, he got one client, and that was his cousin who just wanted to try to impress him. So, it's like, I said, Josh, GIGO, I said, garbage in, garbage out. Your business is begging you for energy, ruthless, nonstop, relentless energy you pour into it. So we're going to go into this month, and I want us to go into a crazy BHAG goal. I want us to see if we can close 20 people. He goes, Dad, I don't know if this. I said, man up, dude. Either do it or let's shut this thing down. And he said, you know what, I think we can do it. So we found out the key lead activity, and we really found, just really got up on that. He ended up closing 21 people in 1 month. Here he's staring at his business. His business is just staring at him, and it's like, well, aren't you going to produce for me? And the business like, well, I need more energy from you. You're staring at me, like depressing me, and I'm not going to cooperate with you. That's what our businesses need, energy. Now, the coaching comes in. Like, I got 4 coaching organizations helping me right now, and yet I'm a coaching organization. It's like we want to focus that energy on really smart energy, smart things to do in your business to really get traction quickly. And so that's why I do what I do, is because I help speed that up for people. But it's still, your business is begging you for energy.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Peter.
I mean, I love that you brought up the fact about your state is so important, because, I mean, when I have my coaching conversation, that's one of the important things, I think, because I truly believe that. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I will have a quick question for you in regards to these cold calls and hearing no. Will you hear when you hear no?
Well, it's like, obviously, my sales presentation sucked. It didn't engage them emotionally. So, going leadership from the heart, we talked about that being one of the topics we can talk about. The key to effective leadership is first you go inward before you go outward. You go inward and make sure, you got energy, you got confidence, you got, you deal with issues, and you come out from a place of abundance and contribution. Mm-hmm. So it's when I hear no, I hear, improve your present. You didn't engage them. That's your responsibility as a salesperson. To get a bunch of stupid people, everybody's saying no, Well, let me ask you this. Who was the one common person that was present in all those transactions? It's called look in the mirror and say, you can do it. You can do it. So, that's what we got to pick ourselves up and do it. I mean, think about, you guys ever watch Shark Tank and Mark Cuban?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Always like lights up when he sees a grinder. He never invests in a non-grinder. Even like, boo, you're not a grinder. I don't want to put one dime towards you. He's nicer than that sometimes. But it's like, that's what he knows. He's a billionaire because he's a grinder. I don't know that I see eye to eye on him politically on stuff, but business-wise, he knows a thing or two.
Yeah.
The foundation of his growth is, he gets up at 3:00 every morning. And he reads for 3 or 4 hours just to be aware of his world that he wants to interact with. But I mean, it's built on a foundation of just grinding,
Well,
so,
and do you think that, this process, right, of cold calling, number one, I can't help but think that this is going to build some serious resilience muscle in other parts of your life as well. And you're going to start to see this discipline show up in other areas that you want to improve. But do you also think that, I mean, because I'll hear people like, oh, I'm not good at sales. Oh, I don't like sales. I'm almost wondering, like, Do you think that anybody can learn this? Like, can anybody do this? And should anybody like, listen, even if you don't consider yourself a salesperson, should you engage in this for the potential benefit, and you can grow this, and maybe you're not going to be the world's best person, or maybe you will. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And also, let me extend that question, Tim, to entrepreneurship. Like, tell us about that.
That's the foundation of it. I mean, the richest people in the world are primarily good salespeople. The most influential people in the world are good salespeople, and we look at sales as this manipulative, dishonest thing that happens on used car lots. Sorry, you used car salesmen, that are honest. Both of you that are listening. So, right. But it's like you gotta have the grit to dig in and do it. And I like what the founders of Airbnb talked about is they like your first 100 clients, just be wild in how you serve them, and don't make it scalable. Just make it where people love you and they want to talk about your business here. And then you'll learn to scale after they love doing business with you. And it just requires a lot of energy. And sometimes you may think, well, it's just not fair. That's what weak people say. That's what victim people say. That's what people that lose say. They talk about fairness, and it's okay if they talk about fairness representing somebody else, but just don't talk about yourself. Just get after it. You don't have to do cold calling, but you've got to be willing to do things that don't come natural to you. Lean into it, and you'll learn more about who you need to be. What I tell all my clients. I said, now the coaching process is, we're a coach. Now, did you ever play football? Yeah, we play football. I said, how many times did the coach come up to you and just give you a hug and say, man, you're sweating a lot. Why don't you sit down and have a cold, drink of water here? No, it's like, get your butt up and get out. They didn't care about comfort. They cared about progress. And so, it's like you've got to get to where you want to lean into it to do the tough things long enough. I know one guy that's a friend of mine, been since high school. He's very, very successful in a number of businesses. Everything he touches turns to gold. And he says, what I do is I work 7 days a week in my business until I don't have to work. So it's just like, wake up pissed off, ready to take on the world, just do it. Or if you need to get in this peaceable state where you levitate and do whatever you need to do, I don't care what, but just get after it and stay after it. It's called mastery comes after you hug a thorn bush for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable for the first 5 years. It's really uncomfortable.
I'm hearing you gotta get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's a Mark Schoen, Dr. Mark Schoen, a clinical psychologist. He wrote a book called Our Instincts Are Killing Us. And he said the number one skill of the 21st century is learning to be comfortable in a state of discomfort. So just, nothing happens in a state of comfort. It usually happens. Change happens in a state of discomfort. Nature teaches us that. The diamond on our rings teaches that. So let's learn the lessons and let's get after it. But I just don't feel, well, I almost said something really bad. Just phooey with your feelings is the F word that came to my mind.
Right.
As it did with Peter here, but
Phooey,
phooey with your feelings here. It's like your wealth and your success, and more importantly, you living out your purpose to impact people in a positive way, that requires you just to ignore them to a degree where you just push through and keep pushing through. As Jim Collins talks about that Good to Great, you just push against the flywheel and it doesn't move sometimes for days, weeks, months. Just keep pushing against it, because once you get movement on it, after a while, the movement starts to move itself.
So, this is awesome. And I think it underlines and highlights the grit that is required to do certain things to get the results you're looking for. Even if you're not good at it, even if you suck at it, even if you, and eventually you'll probably be pretty good at it, or at least marginally okay at it, just through practice and repetition. At some point, I want to transition a little bit here, because at some point you get to you've started to bring on clients, you start to build a business, you start to bring in the leads and prospects, et cetera. And you need to probably start building a team, unless you plan on being a one-man, one-woman show, who arguably it's not even a real business because it's dependent on you completely. Maybe you own a job, really.
Of business. Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And so talk to me about like those, that as you start to build a team, talk to us about team building, bringing people around you. That is a place I see so many entrepreneurs get stuck, because they either don't have the skill set yet, or they of course we've all heard the excuses, nobody cares about a business like me, and nobody can do it as good as me. And so talk to us about how those beginning stages of building a team, how you do that.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to kind of like rapid fire, but it's not rehearsed yet. So gosh, there's no good employees around. Are you attracting? What are you attracting? See, leaders, they don't get who they want, they get who they attract.
Yes.
And so are you contagious in your vision? Are you contagious in your direction? Are you contagious in, if they look at you, do they speed up, and do they go after it, or are they throwing in the towel because you've got a sloppy, just this contagiously bad attitude that's not going anywhere? So you got to be the change that you're seeking in others. Another thing here is, do you have a vision that's compelling? When you talk about your vision, people are like, boom, yeah, like my coaches, there's been some high turnover in these coaches. I said, I want to have these guys for like 20 years or so. So I want to be their second, third, and fourth business. And so I keep on adding more incentives in what they're doing. 95% of their pay is incentive. They determine it. They own their own business. As we buy these businesses and they start to coach it, I'm going to let them buy it at a discounted rate, and be open to capital calls, and just teach them all about this stuff, the good and the bad and the ugly on this. But they're going to see that their wealth begins to really multiply through this process. I've got a compelling vision for these guys to come to me and stay with me. When you talk to people, are you talking down? Are you above them? Or are they, let's join elbows, let's get after this thing? Do you inspire people? When you like somebody. Now, Peter, do you have a friend here, or are we still working on that?
He has a teddy bear.
No comment.
No comment. So, all right. So when people like you, both you guys, Jason and Peter, when they like you, there's a lot of things, your smile, your sense of humor, your positivity. There's a lot of things I've already picked up from both you guys. But when you really get down to it, what they really like about you is kind of selfish. What they really like about you is they like the way they feel about themselves when they're with you. So that's huge on leaders, is like, are you repelling good people and attracting losers? Come on, And the last thing I'll say about this team, building a team, is the missing ingredient for a lot of teams. What they have is they're lacking respect. No, I demand all my people respect me. Well, just shut your pie hole for a second. Let's look at respect differently. Respect is not something you demand from others. Respect is a gift that you give to others. You come from a place of abundance. You're going to act upon it. You're going to create change in that. You're not waiting for that to happen. And so respect is the ability to value something without having to agree with it. So when you respect somebody's idea, you don't have to agree with it, but you can value that they had the courage to speak up on it, and they, even to disagree with you. And I say that the sound of progress is the clashing of ideas. Okay, it's just like if you're so insecure that nobody can have an idea unless you come up with it, just like, well, you want control more than you want progress. That's just real simple. So respect is something that you give to people. And look, a lot of people, men and women, especially men, grew up without having a good role model of authority. It's been a manipulative, it's been violent, it's been betrayal, it's been a lot of things. And so when they don't respect themselves because they haven't seen a pattern where somebody has respected them or respects themselves. So you actually become the leader that shows them the way. You don't just tell them the way, you show them the way. You say, here's what respect feels like. I'm going to give you this respect. And I know one guy that I've been working with for about 15 years now as a coach, even before I officially started my coaching business. He was at about $10 million. He's a apartment remodeler, and he actually lives in another country. He lives in California, and but he's one of the largest apartment remodelers in California. You California people, I love you, and I don't love your politics necessarily. But anyway, it was like a huge thing for him that, he got people that will die for him, will take a bullet for him. And they just go the extra mile because he's just all there. He's all in it for their benefit. He inspires them. He doesn't just have a spoonful for respect. He's just got a massive shovel, just heaving huge amounts of respect towards his people. And he gets productivity out of those guys like you would not believe. It's an unfair advantage he has. So those are some things to think. Does that make sense here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is something that, this is, let me back up. This was a skill for me when I started leading Life in Air, like that I had to develop these things. I made all kinds of mistakes, and you learn.
Right.
What are some of the resources you can recommend, or how do people develop their leadership skills? Like, so you've identified some crucial components of that. How do people nurture that and bring that out with themselves if they have never had any experience with leadership? How do they get better at that?
Okay, so I think reading is really good. Watching videos. I love the Steve Jobs videos on YouTube. The guy was he was very difficult to work with. If you were still breathing as a human, the people that died didn't have as much problem working with him. But, it's like, but he just the way he thought like a leader is just amazing. A number of one of my favorite leadership books for CEOs is The Hard Things About Hard Things by Anderson, and who's the VC.
I'm looking it up right now. The Hard Things About Hard Things.
Yep.
He got it. Ben Horowitz.
Ben Horowitz, yeah, he just let it all hang out. So good reading. It's finding a mentor, and that'll be honest with you. Also asking your staff, and I ask them this question frequently: what stupid thing are we? You're writing this down. STUPID. Okay, so what stupid thing are we doing that we need to stop? And the second question is, what things should we be doing that it's stupid that we're not doing it? Come on, and I want to get that feedback. And I've got my chief operating officer of my coaching company is my son. I got 3 boys and a girl, and my son Robert, and we've had some knockdown dragouts, but we've both had to grow. I had to learn to receive feedback from him on how I was conveying myself, and and just he's my integrator and I'm the visionary. I just see this vision and see how it's supposed to go, and I want it done tomorrow. And he's like, okay, Dad, we got to just, when you do this. And so I've grown huge amount by interactions. If you're married, I call my wife God's sexy voice in my life. So it's cost me a lot of money not to listen to God's sexy. So those are some things I did. Massive reading. The best way to learn to lead is to lead. To do it, but be open to the people that are coming to you, and don't be so needy. It's kind of like the companies. I go out there and buy something, and they're like, give me 29 different ways of how do we do on this and that. Just shut up and stop being so needy. I bought it from you. Stop bothering me, so you don't have to over ask people and be needy about it, but just say, hey, listen, what do I need to do to really improve my leadership?
I love that. I have a quick question for you. I love that because we have that conversation for about an hour now. And I think you've seen some things from, let's say, Vojo here. So my question to you is, how do we fix Vojo? Or is he a lost cause as far as the leader goes? I mean, how we fix it?
I've been writing down. I got 327 things to simplify his life. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. And how many of them are stupid? 326.
Yeah, you're a nut, Peter. You're a nut.
And Tim, along those lines, I need some advice on how to fire someone as well. So we should probably have that discussion. Maybe we could have that offline. I guess
some offline discussion here. Yeah.
How do you fire someone that's not fireable?
Yeah. At least they're very confident they're not fireable.
Right. Exactly. So, Tim, this has been awesome, man. How do people find out more about what you're doing?
Well, you can go out to our website, Redmond Growth. If you just type in the word Tim on the internet, I won't come
that's
up.
Amazing. Right.
I won't come up. I will come up on page 394, I think, last time I looked. But if you do, Tim Redmond Tulsa, I will come up, redmondgrowth.com. If you want to email me, Tim at Redmond Growth, if you have questions or whatever, I'd like to offer this to people that, one, they absolutely love this podcast, and they do see Peter as unfireable. Okay, those are two.
That's right.
But those people that identify them, if they send me an email or they go to our website and fill it out, just say, hey, we're on Jason's Life and Air thing, and we have a growth plan, which is a pretty intense process that we find out where they're at, kind of a SWOT analysis. We find out where they're currently at revenue-wise. Then we actually build them a capacity business model, which is just, people spend thousands of dollars for this. It's powerful. We do that. Then based on that new capacity, we build a 3-year goal for revenue-wise. And then what we do for the rest of the growth plan is we'll provide you 8 to 10 concrete steps of how to get to that 3-year goal with or without us. Now, we're a coaching organization that's a do-it-for-you coaching organization. So we do we get the blueprint for what you need to do to get that 3-year goal, and we actually implement that in your business. That's really, really cool. We normally charge $2,500 for that because people can usually add $100,000 to their business if they just apply these things from the growth plan. We're going to waive that entirely, no cost. If they identify themselves as part of your Life and Air podcast and leave you a 5-star review, just something positive, boom, we're in. We waive that fee and we give them the full deal. But it's actually got to be a business owner.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll do that. And if we get 100 people wanting to do it and nobody, but I mean, it's okay. It's a way that'll just completely change the way you look at your business. I guarantee it. I've never had one person say, "Gosh, that was a waste of my time." Really.
Well, Tim, I'm grateful for that, and I want to thank you for your time and your contributions to Life Inner Show. And I know our audience love this.
Good stuff. Good. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, man. Well, man, I will catch up with Tim afterwards to figure out how to get rid of key personnel within the team. But aside from that, it was a great episode, man. I wanted that information.
Well, first you will have to hire me in order to fire me.
That is true. So, how do I fire somebody I haven't hired?
That is
an interesting dilemma. Yeah,
you would probably be a brand new business type to be able to do that. But listen, here's the cool things that I've gotten out of this particular podcast. Big lesson on being comfortable on being
with discomfort.
Discomfort, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think in business, in entrepreneurial world, in business, you have to do that tons.
Dude,
lot.
It's so
you
true.
have to be uncomfortable.
Well, think about how many people do we know, especially when you're at the beginning stages of business or you're starting a business, you're you want to do all the stuff that's easy, that doesn't make you uncomfortable. You want to get your logo made and you want to get your, go down and file your LLC and work on designs and get your pens made up and pretend business owner versus getting out there and getting after it, and doing the things that are uncomfortable. Dude, yeah, it is totally avoidance behavior. And he's talking about 400 call, a 97, what do you say, 97 point something % failure rate. And just pause there and think about that for a second. How many of us can actually say that we would continue? And while I was talking, by the way, I couldn't stop but think about the Colonel Sanders story with KFC and how many rejections he got. And he said he didn't take no for an answer. He just kept going. That's the grit and that's the mentality. I think you're not going to take no for an answer and you're just going to keep going. Now, at some point you need to balance that with intelligent feedback that you're getting from your prospects, and you don't keep hitting a screw with a hammer, right? But you got to have the grit to keep going, to keep tweaking, and that's something that, man, I'll tell you, I haven't reached that level of I've never tried something 400 times probably. But that is something that I will say, and you could say I'm a slow learner and I wouldn't disagree with that. But for instance, it took me 10 years to win my first bodybuilding contest. It took me 15 years in school, right? So I know what it's like for that persistence. And it's such a huge skill to have that. And anybody can have that. Anybody can develop that. That's not a talent. That's just deciding you're not going to stop.
Right. And I'm on the year 30 something to grow the beard, right? So
right. You have 3 whiskers, man, but you're not. Yeah, that 4th one is on its way.
No, but listen, it is so true in business, because when we have coaching conversations, I hear this quite often. I've did all these things and it's nothing is happening.
Nothing works.
And all that kind of stuff, or nothing works. And employees love the conversation that he had about hiring and building teams.
What are you attracting?
Who are you attracting? Because I think that is a huge part. People don't think if I can't find the right people, is there something over here that I have to deal with? Because who am I attracting? What kind of people am I attracting to my company, to my business?
Yeah.
Or who am I being in that business that's causing people to leave or causing people to do certain things? Because what's the common denominator and all those kinds of things. And I think what he's talking about in this particular podcast is you got to get real with you, who you are as a leader, as a person, as a husband, as, whatever it is in your life. Because when you start getting real with that, you start seeing the reality of it and start making the shifts to be able to live the life.
It does, man. And any changes you make in yourself, anything that you develop, especially as you have a team, that's going to impact how you interact with them. It's going to impact how they feel around you. Remember, he said that as well. You're setting an example. You're modeling for them the same growth trajectory for their own lives. You're helping them realize hey, I'm the leader and I'm still doing this. So certainly, you should be too. And so everybody collectively gets better, improves, and you create a culture of growth and of respect. and results. So it's awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was fantastic. I enjoyed the discussion with Tim. Has a lot of fun with this. If you want to be part of the discussion, go join our private Facebook group. It is just search Life in Air. You'll find us on there. And as always, we would love for you to leave us a review, a rating, share this, let somebody else know what we're doing. Our mission is to impact as many business owners' lives as possible so they can live the life of their dreams. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you next week.